Welcome back to another episode, and this one is a little bit different. It's a Christmas special, and we're going to be critiquing your designs, and I look forward to it because it's a great time of the year. We're chilled, a bit more relaxed this time, in a nice setting, and let's get to it. Dimitri Gregorio. First of all, you have a lot going on this shape, which if you're being reminiscent of the past 60s era vehicles, they don't have so much going on. There's a simplicity and a fluidity to those shapes that you're not really showing here. What I would try to do is run your lines more through the side of the vehicle, not have so much start and stops to the lines. So something that basically flows consistently from the front to the back. Your greenhouse on this vehicle is okay. It's long, it's tapering towards the rear, but I would say that the belt line is either too high or the top of the glass is too low. You have a very small slot, and we often do that to make a car look a little bit more dynamic, but maybe you've gone past that limit where it becomes almost unbelievable. So try to keep the glass area not too tall, but at least more believable. Your windscreen looks flat. Typically a windscreen in this day and age tends to have more what we call plan view. It's rounder, and from a top view you would have more of a spherical shape, a curved shape to it. And the way you're showing it here in this perspective shows very little distance forward in the center line, which would then mean that you have a very flat windscreen. So try to pull the center line of the windscreen a little bit more forward so you create a bit more rake and a little bit more curvature to the front windscreen. As I come to the rear of the design, Dimitri, I would say that your rear end is probably, for a vehicle like this, a little bit too low. I know it's a GT car, but GT cars are about packaging also, and you have to remember that you're probably going to be transporting a little bit of luggage, and you need to have quite a bit of space or available space for that luggage. So without having to go to this extreme, you could have raised the back end and made it look a little bit less low in the back. And that would have given it some purpose, some usability to the rear end. And respect, Dimitri, for stopping your well-paid job and moving towards your passion, which is car design. It's going to be a long road ahead, a long, hard road, but stick with it. If it's your passion, you will get there. Let's have a look at the next one. Limek. Hi Limek. So I can tell that Limek has some experience. He's designed something that has a great sense of proportion. He's used also very good perspective on it. It looks accurate, and a great job looking at different forms on the vehicle that aren't, let's call them, usual. In this regard, I think what you've done is really worked hard to give the car a good rear light signature, which is very important. A lot of us at times when we're first in the beginning phases, but I'm not saying you're a beginner, is we forget about the importance of the rear light signature, as we call it, or the front even, on some vehicles. And you've done an outstanding job of giving the car a very unique light signature, and well done. There are a few elements on the car here that are still, I would say, not up to speed or not up to date with the rest of the car. For example, the way you've done the rear spoiler. It's just another spoiler, I would say. Probably not even a feasible one, but at the same time, kind of boy racer. If that's what you're going for, great. Study aerodynamics, or at least look at Formula One, or look at cars that have spoilers as performance-related elements to the design. You probably wouldn't design a spoiler like this for purpose. So look at making them more integrated into the overall design. That'll help to settle the design a little bit and not look like it's been through an aftermarket mission. The stance of the car is interesting. You have very low clearance, suspension movement, travel, all that between the space between the wheel lips and the tire. So in that sense, front and rear, I can see it's almost unbelievable to do that. A sense of believability has to be in the sketch, and I'm not saying make the wheels smaller or raise the car much higher, but be aware that wheel profiles or tire profiles are probably never going to go down to 10, like you might be showing here, or 5. I mean, there's almost no, you might have a rubber band wrapped around this wheel, and that's about it. And one last point, Limek, is if you're going to make a car, a concept car, consider all the elements to be concept pieces, not just a few elements, because the little pieces are the ones that let you down. And not to hammer on about exhaust pipes, but again, your exhaust pipes are extremely basic. There's no newness to the exhaust pipes, and so you want, when you're designing a concept, every element to be pushing the limits. Limek, thanks for sending this in. You're on the right path. A lot of good things about the technique of drawing and the shading and the reflections. It looks like you know what you're doing. Just remember, proportions are everything, and make sure that when you design a concept vehicle that you consider everything to be like a concept on this vehicle. And now we move on to the next one. Next one is, let's have a look. Which one's coming out? This is Michael Brown from the UK, and this is the first car that you've ever designed. Pretty impressive for your first car. And you're having trouble to put this into 3D, so a 3/4 design perspective, what would it look like? Now, I'm not going to sit down and draw you a 3/4 perspective of your vehicle. That's something that you need to do just to get through that feeling that you can't do it. None of us can do it the first time perfectly, so it's just a case of doing it 10,000 times and you'll nail it. To take this drawing, Michael, into a 3/4 front view, what you would do is you would have to foreshorten it. In other words, the car will, as you spin it on an axis to turn it more towards you, the car is going to get shorter because it's in perspective. The wheels will then turn into ellipses and they won't be circles anymore. And remember that the front wheel is always a larger ellipse than the rear wheel, and probably in overall size, height also, because you're talking about perspective. So it's a complicated thing to grasp when you're first starting to do it. And again, it's just practice, practice, practice. But once you've got a side view to the level you've got here, I would definitely move on to 3/4 perspectives. Imagine the vehicle in your mind first as a photograph. That always helps you. You look at cars from 3/4 view and you start to understand that lines on the vehicle tend to go to the vanishing point that you've already preset. And of course, unless you're drawing a refrigerator, the best way, obviously, to start learning perspective is to turn cubes around in space, draw rectangles, turn them into cubes when you turn them into 3D. That will give you a sense of what happens to lines or an object or a solid object when you turn it slightly. That's how we all start in perspective. We draw cubes, we draw, I don't know, homes or pyramids or whatever. They give us a basic feeling. You're almost rewiring your brain when you start to draw in 3D. It's much more difficult. At the beginning, it's going to feel odd, but again, you'll develop a sense of what's right and what's wrong. So thank you very much, Michael, for sending this in. It takes a lot of confidence to do something for the first time and to submit it, but you've got a great start here. I'd love to see what you could do with this car in a 3D form, but just look at cars out there, look at sketches out there, get a feeling for it, and just go for it. Okay, and now we're going to move on to the next one. This one is Hello, James Mitchell Boggs. This one is an interesting one because we haven't had one like this before. First of all, James, you say that the dress is designed to be reminiscent of those intakes on a Ferrari. I'm trying to think very hard about which Ferrari and which side vents, because that may have been your inspiration. But not to knock the dress, I just don't see any relationship to any intakes I've ever seen before that resemble that on a Ferrari. If you're going to make a dress that resembles or at least has some kind of inspiration from something else, you need to see that. Otherwise, it's not inspired, at least for the person who doesn't know that. That's not to knock the design of the dress, because I can see it's very interesting the way you've separated the colors on it. The three colors are very distinctive and very, very modern, I would say also. But I'm trying to look at something that doesn't remind me of an apron in the front. Again, it's almost like what in car design, what we would call a car designed by 3 people, and that's why you're probably able to convince me on this dress that it does have 3 different views to it. That is like trying to be what we call a jack of all trades kind of thing, like it's trying to cover every part of design, but not maintaining a very consistent or single theme design. And for me, when we're designing objects, you have to have one common or one very strong line that gives you the feeling of the product. In cars, it's hard to use one line, so typically we use 3 lines. 3 lines, if you need more than 3 lines to describe which car you're looking at, the car is probably overdone with the surfacing. Anything less than 3 becomes boring, and what you've got here on this design is probably a lot going on. And I would try, as a positive suggestion, to try to minimize this design of this dress. You're trying too hard, perhaps, with this design. So maybe reel it back in and try to visually connect the front, side, and rear together more than you have here. And let's move on to the next one. Let's see what we got in the bag. Marco Casabi. Hello, Marco. Marco, I don't know how old you are, and I don't know how often you've drawn shoes before, but first of all, congratulations on coming up with a side profile that looks relatively fresh. I mean, shoe design is all about making things look either classically desirable or perhaps pushing limits, and you're definitely pushing limits here. The only problem is I don't see which limits. When you do a design for something, you need to put information into the design that makes it understandable right from the start. You can't expect people to look at a drawing and understand what you're thinking. I wish I was clairvoyant. I may look like Santa Claus, a younger version perhaps, but I can't understand what I'm looking at because a simple 2D drawing done in this fashion here does not communicate the design. I have no idea what materials you're talking about, what colors you're talking about, what anything does. And I know it's a 2D drawing and it's probably, you know, pushing the limits for you at the moment, but unless you think about what you're designing, you're never going to become a designer. Designers are not, I repeat, not artists. They're thinking about the art side, the attractiveness, the aesthetics of a design, but they're also thinking about the materials and the science of the design. So I would think it's a trainer, a modern type trainer, but there's nothing on here that tells me something is being pushed to the limits. You're drawing a shoe, much the same way when somebody draws a car, it's just a car. Design goes a lot deeper than that. You don't just draw another car, you design a car with elements that haven't been done before, perhaps to that level that you're designing it, but you have a reason to do it because it's pushing the accepted limits of whatever we're designing. Do that next time and we might be able to talk more in depth about this design. So let's add a bonus one. This one is the next one and the last one for today, and I hope it's a good one. Let's see, and I'm going to be hopefully pleasantly surprised. Lars is 16 years old. Lars is Lars Cager, and again, let's see what Lars has got here. In one way, it's impressive for a 16-year-old already to be thinking in such a way, because you've really pushed the perspective lines on this. A few of the things are wrong in terms of the vanishing point lines. Not everything is going to that single vanishing point, but you've made an effort. It's something that as you get better in the design world, it'll become a natural thing to design a car that way. It's okay to exaggerate the perspective like you've done here, just not so much. Your wheels are a little bit out of alignment, front and rear, compared to each other, and I do like the loose style that you've used on here, which is very interesting. Next drawing that you've submitted, no, this is not Lars. Lars? Lars, what have you done? You're showing me now a side view, and I think I know what you're doing, Lars. I can see it immediately. You're looking at the different sketch styles of different designers and you're copying them. In one way, it's very revealing. On the other hand, I have to say, when you're that age, it's okay because you're just trying to find your way. You don't know which style you like and you're trying different sketch techniques. So the drawing I'm looking at here, this side view, Lars, is obviously, I'll say it's your design and everything, but I can really tell that you're using a sketch technique that is from an advanced style of drawing, or actually even a new way of sketching that I've seen come along throughout the last few years, where your shading is not consistently in one direction, which is the way we mostly all do it, but then at different points you change the angle of the shading, the pencil shading, and it works great, but this is quite advanced. So I think you're looking at other sketch styles for inspiration. Very nice. I won't criticize you for how nice it is, if that makes sense, but at the same time, it looks quite big of a jump from your first sketch to your second sketch. So maybe, I don't know which one is your current level. Maybe the next one will tell me. This is not Lars. This is Lars? Lars, how many sketch styles do you have? Lars, you've got a great source of abundant sketches to be looking at. Now I'm looking at a car that I recognize this car, Lars, and I can see that you've probably taken a lot of inspiration for it. We won't talk too much about that side of it, just that you've used another sketch style on here, but good on you for experimenting. You're too young to have a fixed style, I would say, and you're really looking at different styles to find your way, which is good. All car designers should, when they're first starting out, look at what they really like out there and try to imitate it. And once you can get to that level, it's only the next level that you have to get through, which gives that style of sketching your own personal touch. You've got a looseness, which is very good. And I hope you learn from this, who's ever inspired this drawing for you, because they're showing a lot of the techniques here, which are very good about reflection in the glass area, in the areas that are concave going away from you and coming back. You've got the right shading on there. You've got dramatic perspective on the wheels, which gives you that sense of 3D on it. That's very good, Lars. Learn from this one, the Ferrari-esque one, if you know what I'm talking about, because it shows you how you can do a quick sketch with a lot of inspiration that later you will probably eventually have to bring back to reality. But at least you're experimenting with a different style of sketching and the looseness, which I really like on this one, Lars. So yours are a lot of fun, Lars, to look at, because in reality, it looks like I'm looking at 5 different designers who've submitted designs and it's all your work. So again, that's a reflection that you're still looking for your way. You're still trying to find your way, and settle for one of them. There's nothing bad in having a design style or a sketch style that is similar to somebody else's, but you need that extra touch once you get to that level that they have achieved to turn it into your own style. So look for, again, a style that you like and make it your own. Don't keep hopping around with different sketch styles. And that's it. Now we're done. I've just emptied my sack, and I think we don't have any more to go through at the moment. I'll look forward to doing some more sketches in the coming year. 2021, we'll be able to look forward to some awesome episodes. We're going to step up the game next year, and we're going to do a lot of things that you guys aren't expecting. And the plans are big. So there we have it. Merry Christmas, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the year. Not much left, and we'll look forward to an awesome, innovative 2021. Stay curious.